Okay. Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for joining. My name is Christine Dallinger, and I welcome you to today's NEWBITS webinar entitled Developing Successful Business Cases for ITS Services. Thank you all for being with us today. This webinar is in fact the fourth in a series of 4 webinars that will be delivered by experts from the ITS project NEWBITS. And these webinars have been organized with the aim to share unique insights from a novel collaborative approach to craft new business models for intelligent transport systems. If you have any questions, you're invited to write them in the chat box, and we will collect and address them right after the presentation. Of course, you're also invited to send further questions that may arise later to us via email. And the recordings of this webinar will also be made available on the NEWBITS project website. So what you will learn in this webinar, well, this webinar will give you a comprehensive insight into how cost-benefit analysis can support the decision-making in the context of European ITS initiatives, and how it can help in developing successful business cases for ITS services. So besides a brief introduction into the NEWBITS project, in the first part of the webinar, you will then have a chance to find out how to use cost-benefit analysis to craft new business guidelines for ITS services. And in the second part, you will get insights from a demonstration of an intelligent carpooling system at the Autonomous University of Barcelona in Spain. This webinar will be delivered by experts from Coventry University and the Autonomous University of Barcelona. It's an honor to introduce today's speakers to you. Anita is a senior lecturer in cybersecurity management at the Faculty of Business and Law and a research associate at the Faculty Research Center for Business in Society, both at Coventry University. And Anita is responsible for the delivery of various research projects for business and government institutions. And second, Javier will be presenting. He holds a bachelor's degree in business economics and an MBA from the Autonomous University of Barcelona, is a full professor in management information systems and member of UAB's Board of Trustees. And with no further ado, let me hand over to our first speaker, Anita.
So a few facts about NEWBITS. NEWBITS is a European Union funded Horizon 2020 project, which has been running for 30 months starting October 2016 and is due to be completed next month in March. We are 9 partners from 6 countries, including the UK, Spain, Netherlands, Germany, Italy, and Greece. Our coordinator is Viera Bokova from Ortalio. The aim of NEWBITS is to have an improved understanding of the conditions affecting ITS innovation deployment using an improved value network based framework that minimizes failures inherent to CITS innovation diffusion, evolve current business models, and identify effective incentives to accelerate CITS deployment. NEWBITS has 4 case studies predominantly. So the first case study is led by UAB in Spain, which is a university carpooling service. This is an example of the sharing economy collaborative consumption, where the platform matches users to vehicles to reduce unnecessary trips. The second case study is Urban Traffic Control Solution in Italy, led by TTS Italia. This is an example of the Internet of Things Smart City CITS platform to monitor drivers' behavior and forecast. The third case study is led by CE Delft in the Netherlands, which is a container tracking service. This is an example of how smart data analytics and real-time information can improve the logistic chain. The fourth final case study is from our university, Coventry University in the UK, which is a rain maintenance solution and is based on an example of big data analytics and visualization service of infrastructure assets to avoid unplanned repairs. So this is the basis of the 4 case studies in NEWBITS. Now we look at cost-benefit analysis. What this section entails is we first will discuss the general introduction of cost-benefit analysis, identification of costs and benefits, a general methodology of CBA, indicators of the CBA, limitations, and the case study 1 as an example for the CBA. Well, I've already started saying CBA, so CBA is the short term for cost-benefit analysis and is also abbreviated sometimes as the BCA. There are numerous definitions for CBA, but all of them share 4 key elements in that they agree that CBA is a process or technique, and it aims at quantifying both benefits and costs. It evaluates the costs and benefits, that is, it monetizes any costs and benefits associated with it. And the results of the CBA helps stakeholders in making decisions for any projects. Now we look at the definition of CBA. CBA is a procedure aimed at quantifying and evaluating the costs and benefits of an investment project in order to determine its feasibility. It is usually carried out to support decision-making in investments. Benefit cost, also called cost benefit as highlighted before, it uses monetized values to compare total incremental benefits with total incremental costs. These results can then be presented as a ratio with benefits divided by the costs. Although the CBA aims to quantify all the measures in monetary terms to compare in a common unit, not all valuations are available to monetize. CBA is a useful tool that not only assists in deciding to proceed with the policy measure, but assessing its benefits and costs, it can also be valuable in structuring the policy preparation itself. We look at the methodology here, the steps that are used in conducting the CBA. So the step 1 is to define the problem analysis, or called scoping the problem. So we first look at what is the nature of the problem and how it might develop. Are there any governmental interventions for this? What are the effective solutions for the problem itself? The problem analysis should be carried out as early as possible, as this contributes to a key part of the decision making. The next step then is to define policy alternatives. What we mean here is that how would the situation develop if the project or measure is not implemented? A no-bill scenario or a business as usual scenario, as we call it. Once this is done, we define and value the costs associated with the project. So the cost may be one-time costs, periodic costs, fixed or variable. We then go and define the benefits. So you have to identify the benefits, quantify it, and monetize the value. In not all cases, we can monetize the value of the benefits. In those cases, we call it as intangible benefits and try to value it from resources that are available through literature and other resources. Once the costs and benefits are identified, we then put it in a CBA model and conduct the analysis itself. Any uncertainties and risks are then identified here during the analysis. Once the analysis is conducted, the outcomes are presented that provides indicators, which we will discuss in a while. And that determines whether the project is feasible to be conducted or not. And this is where the decision makers decide whether to continue with the project or not. Costs, as mentioned, can be either resources, material costs, and depending on the project. And we define it in 4 different categories. We call it initial costs, continuing costs, rehabilitation costs, or end of project costs. Initial costs can include the planning, construction costs, any land acquisition, any project-related staff training costs, etc. Operations and maintenance usually are categorized into the continuing costs. Any future cost of repairs or improvement is the rehabilitation costs. And end of project costs include any residual value, the closeout of the projects, etc. Benefits. So benefits are defined as all of the effects of the program on its users or the society. This may be positive benefits or even negative benefits, but all of them are measured and provided in the CBA analysis by quantifying it or monetizing it. As examples, it includes travel time, vehicle costs, safety, reliability, reduction in pollution emissions, economic effects, and community impact. Once the costs and benefits are identified for the analysis, it is discounted to a present value. This is done because the present value of money or goods is perceived to be higher than the expected value of returns in the future because of inflation. So using a discount rate as prescribed by a country, the formula shown on the screen is used to calculate the net present value of a project. Once the discounting for all the costs and benefits is done, this is entered in the model, and we use indicators such as the NPV and BCR, which we'll look at in a minute, to determine if the project is feasible or not, the benefit and cost cash flow. And if the NPV value is greater than 0 or positive, then we say it's economically feasible for the project to go ahead. If the NPV is lesser than 0, then it is considered as not a feasible project. The BCR is another indicator of the CBA, which is the benefit cost ratio, which actually is the total sum of the benefits divided by the total sum of costs. And if the BCR ratio is greater than 1, then we say the benefits outweigh the cost of the project and it is feasible to go ahead with the project. If it is lesser than 1, then the project has a risk and is not feasible to go ahead. So here is a little bit more background of the net present value. So it provides the difference between the present value of the benefits and the total sum of the present value of the costs. As mentioned, if the NPV value is greater than 0, the project has the economic justification to proceed, denoting that if the sum of the NPV of benefits is greater than the NPV of costs. BCR or the CBA is presented as a ratio, and this is achieved by calculating the sum of the NPV of benefits and comparing them against the sum of the NPV of costs. This is expressed by the equation on the screen. And if the BCR is below 1, then the costs outweigh the benefits of the project and hence should not proceed. On the other hand, a BCR above 1 suggests that the benefits associated with the project are higher. There are limitations of the CBA. The first limitation, we say, is the geographical area. As there are different provisions of road types, the traffic flow, etc., always need to be considered, and this might not be possible. Political context. The various support and subsidies, as well as the legal situation, can have a serious influence on the costs and benefits if they're not considered properly. Point of time consideration. This means that the CBA needs to choose a time and estimate cost as well as benefits in the future time. Technology issues. A choice for new technology also contains a lot of risks, and these are not easily reflected in the CBA. Human factors plays a big role in the limitations of the CBA. For example, you may have some technology installed on board the vehicle, and this might raise the safety this might raise the drivers to feel safer, so they start driving faster, and this may have a negative impact on the benefits actually, because the behavior might change and result in a negative CBA. Discount rate plays a major role because if you consider a high discount rate, the value of the benefits will fall down tremendously. So this starts to play a large role in the CBA, and as the years extend of a project, this may have a serious impact on the analysis. There is always uncertainty over costs, as certain ITS require specific hardware. Sometimes hardware is already available. You may have incremental costs for each case. So in different scenarios, the costs will differ, making it uncertain. The next group of limitation is in quantifying benefits. So although we are able to quantify many benefits, there's sometimes intangible benefits to a project, and this becomes hard to quantify, such as reduction of stress cannot really be quantified in a certain way. The time we save, because an ITS solution provides us with time reduction, can't always be quantified, and hence this can't be reflected in the project, which becomes a serious limitation. The last indicator is the moral and ethical limitations. So this relates to the value of human life or health. This is an uncertainty because there is always an argument about how it's ethically wrong to assign a monetary value to human life or even injury. So quantifying this always does not help in the CBA. So here we summarize the CBA. For decision-making in investments, the analytical tool CBA is used. So although CBA assesses the costs and benefits, we use it for economic advantages or disadvantages. Mostly, a CBA is conducted before a project is initiated, but sometimes it can be carried out at completion of a project, as this provides lessons learned to a project and helps as an evaluation. CBA, as we've seen, has certain limitations to it, and therefore is not always feasible to decide whether a project is feasible to consider or not. So the higher the reliability of the CBA results, the higher the success for implementation of a project. So I thank you for joining me on the first part of the webinar. Now I hand it over to my colleague, Javier.
So good afternoon. That's right. Okay. As we previously said, our first case study is an intelligent carpooling system for daily mobility that we are deploying in the main campus of the Autonomous University of Barcelona. UAB campus get filled with over 13,000 vehicles of a very low occupation index, 1.2 people per vehicle, the same average that the metropolitan region of Barcelona. On a normal day, there is a peak of 8,000 concurrent cars, while there are only 7,000 parking spaces. While the UAB does not have sanctioning capacity, badly parked vehicles generate serious mobility problems, such as blocking roads, invasion of unauthorized space, hindering mobility of pedestrians, service vehicles, etc. For the UAB means having infrastructures that require constant investment and maintenance, as well as having a space that could be used for other, more productive uses. For system users, the main problem is the time, cost, and quality of the trip and from to university. With regard to the society in general, there is unnecessary pollution and increased congestion of the road network. A carpooling system is part of the solution. The proposal is so simple. If we can ensure that the vehicle is high occupancy, tracking occupants through an application, you can park in a reserved area. The benefits and costs of having fully functional carpooling system compared to the current situation cannot be known because they don't exist. Nevertheless, the current level of development of the system allows us to have a very accurate estimation of the cost and can infer with a little more uncertainty the benefits. The cost part of CBA of the case study 1 was really easy to obtain, given that the pilot has been previously developed and therefore we knew perfectly the cost. From here, it was simply necessary to include the cost of raising it to a final version and those of adapting the spaces. And since it's being deployed at the present, we also have been able to access to real cost values, and it has not been necessary to use estimations. In the slide, you can see the actual figures that we use. In the side of the benefits, it's not so easy. As a system does not incorporate any type of payment by users, there is no monetary income of any kind. Therefore, we cannot talk about revenues, which doesn't mean that the system has no benefits, but all of them are intangible. The most relevant and quantifiable benefit comes from savings in CO2 emissions. The main objective of the entire project is to reduce 2,000 cars in 3 years. We will assume a reduction of 750 vehicles the first year, 1,500 the second year, and 2,000 the third and subsequent years. However, this reduction of vehicles will not occur all days of the year. We do not have a direct data of daily arrival of vehicles, but we can obtain an indirect reference that is the monthly number of passengers in public transport. And in a very conservative way, we can fix in a 200 days per year as average. From the mobility plan of the UAB and taking into account the city of residence of those who daily arrive at the university, we can infer that the average displacement is 23 kilometers, 46 round trip. From Eurostat, we can see the average CO2 emissions of a new vehicle in Spain. If we cross this information with the average age of the cars in Catalonia, data we obtained from Mobility Observatory of the Generalitat of the Government of Catalonia, we can obtain that this average emission of a standard vehicle in Catalonia is 148 grams per kilometer, which multiplied by the number of vehicles allows us to obtain the CO2 savings. The overall net present value of CS1 by-point carpooling system, as the difference between the NPV of the benefits and cost, is a little bit more than 500,000 euros. Seen another way, the investment is recovered at the beginning of the third year. All these figures you can find it in the deliverable. There are other intangible benefits that we cannot include in the CBA, given this calculation complexity and a lot of variations and subjectivity. But we have to say that the other benefits that exist was the reduction of stress, the increase of trackability of reduction of uncertainty, considering the security of finding an unoccupied car park without having to look for it. Reducing 15% of the influx of vehicles leads to considerable reduction in traffic accidents. Time to find a parking space close to zero. It's really directed to the first intangible benefit. It's really important because in peak hours, we could be more than 10 minutes looking for a parking space. The data acquisition is one of the main drivers of the project, because system will provide big data on users' mobility habits, but real data, because we are tracking all the users. The reduction of vehicles parked inappropriately could mobility and safety in the university campus. Also, another benefit is the promotion of interaction between users, because we are engaged at we are in a project to help and to provide and to promote the multidisciplinary groups between different faculties of the campus. And as the conclusions, Anita will tell you the conclusions.
Thank you, Javier. As Javier has mentioned, we had a CBA analysis made on all the 4 case studies. So Javier presented the case study 1. The case study 2 was an example, clear example of the limitations of CBA. As we could not monetize all the benefits, most of them were intangible benefits, and hence we actually got a BCR ratio of less than 1, while the other 2 cases had a good BCR ratio of more than 1. You can find all of these data on our website in the deliverable D5.1. So to summarize, we had CBA is an analytical tool that actually endeavors to express the most important effects in monetary values, and also the fact that it's not always possible to monetize all the values. It does measure efficiency, but decision makers sometimes have to use other objectives to make the decisions. Regarding the CITS services, these are more likely to be delivered when a number of organizations with different business cases and models are involved. However, it is a very difficult task to quantify and understand within a CBA all the individual costs and benefits, which will vary with each link in the delivery chain, the consumer and the society. So as I mentioned before, our CBA was carried out for the 4 case studies, which guided us to formulate the business case guidelines for each of the 4 case studies. So in conclusion, CBA provides the first general overview of the potential of cooperative systems to address the society needs. However, its support to build a complete business case for a specific implementation is quite limited, as we highlighted. If you have any questions, please approach either of us, either through the chat box or, as Christine mentioned, you can get in touch with us. So thank you, and here we've come to the end of our webinar.
Yeah, thank you to both speakers. Before we close, I would like to take the opportunity to draw your attention to 3 additional NEWBITS webinars, which you can access for free on the project's web page as well. In fact, the first one presents results from a conjoint analysis, a statistical marketing research technique specifying which elements of an ITS service are key for the potential users. And this webinar presents market insights from the 4 ITS services covering all ITS market segments and different transport modes. The second one delineates how so-called community of interest, which is an exchanging accumulation of different stakeholders sharing common goals and interest, how this one can create a momentum to drive the development of new business models for ITS, and it explains the functionalities of a new collaboration platform called NEWBITS Network Platform. And the third webinar shows you how to use a value network-based approach to design and craft new business models for ITS services, and it outlines the importance of intangible value flows between stakeholders of a value network. And as you can see from the next slide, if you want to stay in touch with the NEWBITS project partners, you can access further reports on our project website and follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter. And most importantly, you can join the NEWBITS Network Platform, which is a novel ITS collaboration platform. And on this one, you can further explore and discuss ideas regarding, for example, the cost-benefit analysis and how to come up with new business models for intelligent transport systems. So we very much look forward to welcome you on the NEWBITS Network platform, and thank you for joining us today.